from the Demon King's order to massacre elves, in between Craft the Monk and Frieren's conversation about thinking that elves were extinct, last seeing one 300 years ago. The question remains, how many are still out there? For this video, we will discuss some lore about elves and Frieren Beyond Journey's End, with the focus being on Milliarde and how she could still tie in into future arcs. And at some point, this elf of the Court of the Sacred Staff will be revealed in the manga. But before we get to that, it's another day in the Frieren Manga hiatus. Yamada Kanehito and Abe Tsukasa are sick. Is this a Milliarde shenanigan? Is it her mimic? But are they really just chilling in the hot springs while we are just Stark? However, I think we just witnessed the Foundation Festival Arc's super secret, up-to-date script that got delivered to the great mage Serie, the feet goddess. As the living grimoire opens the script, it says, ears down, hair up, lick that popsicle.
不合格だ.
In all the Frieren world, we were led to believe that elves are extinct, or close to it. Even Frieren and Craft spoke about last seeing one 300 years ago, and many humans that Frieren's party come across talk about how rare it is to see one. We know that the Demon King sent demons to massacre elves, but many of the details of that order are vague. Let's just assume the premise that the order was to eliminate all elves because they are the most dangerous threat to demons because of their lifespan. What is the question that I'm trying to get to? Where do the elves reside? Elves seem to be beings of solitude, but not necessarily like demons, as we see here clearly by the dead bodies of the flashback of Frieren. Being the last remaining survivor of her village, the concept of family, friends, and community seemed to be present. Both Frieren and Flamme were incandescent with rage that the demons took everything from them. During this time period, human civilization in regards to magic was in its infancy, as Flamme was the one that helped promote, teach, and bring magic to the world, along with their over 100 magical theories, and teaching the first imperial mages that were stronger than Frieren at the time. It's hard to say how much intermingling there were between elves and human, but both seemed to be very friendly to each other, with us knowing that there were still elven villages around when humans were around, and the fact that Craft the Monk was a great hero with the OG gold tea priest. The only time we've seen a lot of elves, they were technically dead, but they were amongst themselves. So we don't know how common it was for elves to be hanging around a bunch of humans. If at least all known elven communities or villages have ceased to exist due to the demon massacre, it will only make sense that the remaining elves would be living amongst other humans. Other unidentified surviving elves are just wandering around like a Craft the Monk. There is a chance that there is a random elf community out there, as we don't know exactly where they were even located in the first place, but I surmise they might still be living amongst the general forest areas, like in the northern plateau, rather than any desert areas or where human civilizations exist. That conclusion is due to just general elf lore in the scenes of Frieren's burning village, along with their conversation with Milliarde in that foresty woods area. That would make the most sense where secret elf villages or civilizations could still reside. But of course, it's a secret and it's probably hidden. One of the most crucial chapters I will be referring to is in chapter 69 or in season 2 episode 5 or episode 33 overall, in the anime that has to do with Frieren's conversation with the elf Milliarde. The one thing I will touch upon right now about the Bulls Half cheap booze that the trolly menace Milliarde had cooked up had to do with Frieren's explanation of Bull's Half. It was used during the coronation ceremony, but it's the worst kind of cheap hoosh, isn't it? The key words here are obviously coronation ceremony. A coronation ceremony is like a formal ritual where a monarch, a ruler, or someone super high up gets installed amongst us plebs. That is very interesting because we can obviously just attribute that to the Empire. It's not clear if this is the age of the unified Empire, but judging by the map that was shown when Frieren dropped off the script to the Flamme's will, we know that 1,000 years ago, the empire looked like this. So we can assume that maybe if the unified empire as we know it was on the decline at that point, as we can see with the southern lands, and the demons were slowly taking over territory at that point. It will also mean that elves also see the empire as their ruler. But that doesn't make sense if elves were mages and magic users, and lived probably a lot more majestic life, and lived like way longer. Wouldn't it make sense if they just ruled themselves? Basically, are the elves running the empire alongside the humans, or are they their own separate entity? Or are they a super secret elf cabal that is running things behind the scenes, like the Court of the Sacred Staff? Straying away from that obvious answer that the coronation ceremony is referring to the ruler of the empire, it would absolutely break my brain if the elves had their own ruler, and that could be what Frieren was referring to here. A vague mentioning of the coronation ceremony here does open up that possibility, but a counter to that would be like when Lore went out to buy booze for the Foundation Day ceremony. As we are currently aware, the Empire is the only one we can verify that has such a ceremony. Going back to the question of how many elves could still be out there, we are led to believe that the demons made them so endangered that the remaining 2 elves earlier on, and Frieren and Kraft, thought that they were extinct. However, how many times have we been surprised that elves just keep kind of popping up? There is obviously Frieren of the hero's party. Then there was Kraft that considered Frieren, who is at least over 1,000 years old, as young. In the first class mage exam arc, we are introduced with the great mage Serie, the living grimoire, that hasn't seen Frieren in over 1,000 years. You would think that those 3 would be basically it, right? Wrong. We are introduced in a random side quest with the troll, the person that probably makes all the mimics, and the fake flamme grimoires, the phallic symbol for Eisen's nose, and the fake hero's sword, and probably went to Oreo and said, "This is it." Milliarde, the menace, aka the goddess of trolling. Once again, I will get to the details of Milliarde in a bit, because many have not considered these brief 2 pages in the anime scenes that uses particular wording to describe this encounter with Frieren, her circumstances, and the possible timeline when this happened that Frieren went to ask Milliarde why she's such a bum, or actually a troll that has incredible magic that was able to create a barrier that took Frieren 3 months to dispel. But before we get into the details of that, who else could there be if elves are near extinction? The great mage Minas the Witch, who was introduced in the Foundation Festival arc as a witch that brought endless war to the Southern Lands and was accused of high treason and was supposedly defeated by a nameless warrior from a small remote region, with the rumor being that the fight was actually a draw, and the warrior that defeated her might not even be the current day Commander Reve of the Rogue Shadow Warriors of the Empire. And one thing that would throw you off, this only happened 20 years ago. That means the great mage Minas was still lurking around for 280 years, which means she was alive after the Demon King was defeated and was yeeted, likely around the time that Fern was born during the war-torn Southern Lands. If we just assume that the last time Frieren or Kraft saw an elf, it would be Minas, or we can speculate further, Milliarde, or at least whoever this elf is that is a part of the Court of the Sacred Staff. How does one not hear about some great mage elf that's obliterating the Southern Lands? Would something this significant not reach at least the Central Lands, or even further up north to the Empire? Remember when Frieren fought Mach 600 years ago, and it took her a century to just recover her arm from being Diagold's. Like Serie said, a century is nothing to an elf. The remaining elves could just be in hiding for whatever reason. The great mage Minas could have just been hiding and plotting her way into plundering or destroying the Southern Lands after getting so much demon PTSD. One of the more interesting great mage lores is when Shrit, the mercenary of the Shadow Warriors, refers to only one of the three great mages that disappeared from the world. We can assume the three, that includes Minas, would be Frieren and Serie. We can just exclude for now the fan theory that Milliarde is this elf silhouette of the Court of the Sacred Staff. But we can assume that this is an elf that is a part of the Court of the Sacred Staff. When Megan explains to Ubel about secret units dedicated to countering mages in order to prevent rebellion, it is implied that both the Shadow Warriors and the Court of the Sacred Staff exist. So let's just assume that the Court of the Sacred Staff still exists. The issue I have with what Shrit says about there being only 3 great mages left in the world is this symbol. It is the same holy symbol or emblem that Frieren has and Minas had, that apparently Commander Louv lent the Shrit to boost morale and belief that they can yeet the great mage Serie, Frieren, her party members, and the other Continental Magic Association mages. If Frieren is the last great mage and this holy symbol is one that only great mages possess, then that means they are all connected to the Court of the Sacred Staff somehow. I actually made a video breaking down the Great Mage Minas and the Court of the Sacred Staff if you guys want to check that out. But my speculation is over the Continental Magic Association being another Court of the Sacred Staff type of organization that regulates magic. It was that holy emblem that Frieren saved that proved that Frieren is a legit mage, and even compared it to Serie's organization due to needing to pass exams to bypass regulations, like how Fern's first class mage status allowed Frieren's party to continue advancing passing through the Northern Plateau. If the Court of the Sacred Staff still exists, that would mean there are potentially more great mages out there, or at the very least, more specifically, more elves out there that we don't know about. And it just fuels further fan theory that many elves are just hiding. To be honest, you can't blame elves if they are hiding because they almost went extinct. Remember that Serie only recently, in the past 50 years, created the Continental Magic Association. Besides accumulating magical knowledge to be known as the Living Grimoire, what exactly was she doing before deciding to train talented human mages under her new organization? If we just look at these 3 elves in Frieren, Serie, and Minas, it took them centuries before making a major ruckus and being known worldwide. For the most part, aside from becoming a great mage and fighting Mach for whatever reason, Frieren laid low before joining the hero's party. That was roughly 900 to 1000 years later, post Flamme training. Serie seemed to only be interested in training talented mages, with it only being 50 years ago, creating a regulatory magic organization that has proliferated across the cities and countryside as a critical part of their security. In Minas' case, and if we assume that 300 years ago was the last time Frieren and Kraft last saw an elf, and probably already a great mage at that, at some point she created a ruckus in the southern lands that ended her life only 20 years ago. I understand there are fan theories that Minas is alive, but my point remains that elves can wait centuries before making an appearance. Now, this finally takes me to Milliarde. The lesson behind Milliarde trolling and putting up fake legends about some awesome booze that turned out to be ass, ironically, is a lesson within itself. We know that she lost her way somewhere in the past because she reached for something that turned out to be worthless. She literally says, "I'm talking about myself, about what happened to me a long time ago," in reference to pursuing something her entire existence, only for it to be completely worthless. Why am I bringing this up about Milliarde's situation? Well, it sets up a redemption arc where she finds a new path. A part of Frieren is finding a new path, a new journey, like Frieren beyond Journey's End, like Himmel, Heiter, and Eisen post defeating the Demon King. People need to find a new way, a new purpose, and her character fits exactly that kind of character arc. Her character, in my opinion, is meant to continue. Where does that lead us to? Potentially the Court of the Sacred Staff that has the same holy emblem that Minas and the last great mage Frieren possesses. So, is Milliarde still alive? I addressed this in my previous video covering Season 2, Episode 5, or Episode 33 overall, and likely in the Meanest the Witch in the Court of the Sacred Staff video. But yes, Milliarde could still be alive. The most obvious answer that people have is that Milliarde got yeeted when the demons came to massacre the elves. Frieren is supposed to be the lone survivor. That is the most logical and reasonable answer. However, Kanehito explicitly chose these words,
私、この里に来る前に
which is in the English translation, before I came to this village. Why am I so fixated on this phrase? Because she came to Frieren's village, meaning she is a visitor or a guest or someone that stayed long enough to be a part of the community. However, if she just came there, she can obviously just decide to leave. Remember that she had this issue that she pursued her whole life, only to find out that it was worthless. That is why, before she came to the village, she did her shenanigans. It is very plausible that she left before the demons came. In my last video, I comped her to the vagabond werewolves because she seems to be just wandering around with no real path. That is why she is set up to be the perfect example or character arc to find a new passion and a new path, whether it's the Court of the Sacred Staff or not. And of course, she seems to be quite the powerful mage that can put up some strong barriers that it took Frieren 3 months to take down. So back to the great mage thing as it relates to the time period that Frieren and Milliarde spoke. We know Flamme was a great mage herself. So the Court of the Sacred Staff, or the title of great mage that holds that holy symbol, has been a thing for over 1,000 years. I will make an addition to when this Frieren and Milliarde interaction took place. It makes the most sense to me to assume that Milliarde and Frieren spoke here, in Frieren's village, before the demons mass yeeted the elves before Flamme came to train her. However, I am open to the possibility that this is an entirely new village, as we saw Frieren train and pick flowers in a garden in a luscious green forest. It is quite possible that this is a part of Frieren's quiet 1,000-year life before Himmel came to recruit her into the hero's party. But the possibility still remains that Milliarde could still be alive, if that's the case. All in all, this video was to prove that we are being bamboozled with lore that there are not many elves left, which is technically true, but there are many more elves out there that even Serie, that has lived since the age of Mythic, where the goddess of creation was last seen, who also happens to look like an elf herself. Some of these elves could just be like Kraft the Monk and Frieren, just out adventuring, doing their own thing. They could be like Minas, plotting something from the sidelines before making their move in the southern lands. They could also be like this elf of the Court of the Sacred Staff, and of course, someone like Millarde, who was just wandering about with no purpose. What remains clear to me is that there are many plausible scenarios that many more elves could reasonably pop up to make an impact on the Frieren story. So let me know what you guys think about the lore behind the elves. Are there more elves? Is Milliarde the Court of the Sacred Staff silhouette? Do you think that there are communities of elves hidden somewhere in the forest? Let me know in the comments below, and I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.